thank you first of all for these opportunities. Yeah, Olivera is from Serbia originally, lived abroad in France and Belgium, and also traveled the world with my previous work experiences. So it's, I would say, an international person in her mind. I am a public affairs professional. Lived in Brussels for the last 20 years. And Olivera is, I would say, somebody who thinks out of the box, who is also very much business driven, sort of pretty much pragmatic, and likes to have fun. Well, that was never a plan necessarily, but first of all, I worked for various companies, also for a trade association. I also work as a consultant, and I also created a sort of a cultural club. And I think all these experiences at some point told me, well, you're ready to create your own business. And why I created my own business is that I thought that I want to run the things the way I see them, with the values I have. So the business is a typical Brussels business, I would say. It's a consulting company that is called Values Consulting. And it's a company that gives advice to companies, can be also governments, NGOs, and anybody basically who needs advice in the energy intensive sector when it comes to European legislation, international politics, geopolitics. So consultancy that is doing public affairs, strategic communications, and also business development. I would say it's a very young business. I call ourselves a startup. Even though people who created this business, I have a business partner in this, are pretty experienced people with over 25 years experience in different fields. But when you start something from scratch, you have to know everything about everything. And that means not just about your core business, but also things around that, what it means to set up a company in Belgium, how do you find a good accountant, how do you deal with employing people, sort of HR issues. At the same time, you have to run your business because you do have clients. So I would say all these other supporting things around your core business, it's probably the biggest challenge, because some of these things are easy to understand, to do them, and some others are just a sort of a big learning curve. Well, thank you first for calling it success. I think it's still a pretty young baby company to already see success, but I do think that it started very well. Why it's maybe a success already, at least, after a year, is that we've exceeded our own expectations about, how good it would be. And I say this because in the first place, we just thought, okay, we will start doing it like slowly, piece by piece. At the same time, it's possible, but other things come and you have to sort of to respond to this external environment. And I think we managed to respond to all these other things that were not planned in a successful way. So the first thing, what we planned, like, of course, it must be a success, because if we planned and if it's not success, we have a problem. But the things that go around that is something that you don't know. You don't plan a war, you don't plan other externalities, and responding to those externalities in a so far good way, I can then call it success. Well, I think there are probably many lessons, but one of them is that you really have to have people around you in whom you have full trust. That helps a lot. Other than that, I would say is really sticking to your plan, and having a plan is really important, but also sticking to that. As I said before, of course, you don't know what tomorrow brings, therefore, sticking to your plan is already helping a lot. So I would say that's probably the most important lesson, and also that lesson is important because when you set up your business, you're the one who is accountable for everything at the end of the day. So if you don't plan things well, you have a problem, not anybody else. Well, I have plenty, of course, and some of them, of course, now we talk about business, so I will talk about my business role models. Are my ex-bosses, or the bosses of my bosses, or my colleagues even. But I could even say those whom I managed are my role models. I learned a lot, especially in the last few years when I worked in a public affairs consultancy. In another one, I worked with a lot of young people, and I learned a lot from them. And so why my role models are my role models? Because I don't know, but I wanted to imitate them. I wanted to be like them. And I wanted to do things that they do well. And I think the combination of those role models is probably who I am today in terms of how I do business and how I behave at work. Maybe, well, I could name many of them, but the longest boss I had in the company BP was Howard Chase. And from Howard, as a Serbian person who is not necessarily by nature diplomatic, from Howard, who is British, I learned a lot about diplomacy and how to say things, and what not to say, and when to say, and how to say. For instance, that's something that really impacted me a lot, because I discovered that you can have a number of personalities in yourself, depending on the situation you are in. Basically, you can be at the same time a student and behave like a student when you meet students at the university. At the same time, you can be a businesswoman and dress up as a businesswoman, and you go and have a proper business meeting. And let's say in the evening, if you have a dinner with an ambassador, you can become a diplomatic person. So I think juggling with these different things is not being a bad person because you pretend to be three. I think it's really adapting yourself to the person you are discussing with, and sort of responding to it in a most appropriate way. So I think really the thing I learned the most, probably through the experience, and I would say probably a lot from my British boss, was this ability to be different person for a different occasion, I would say, but in a very appropriate way. Yeah, interesting.
Well,
I would have liked that somebody told me when I was
first to say that
or a young
when
woman,
I was a younger woman, I didn't necessarily have the
I think for
advice
and
or
in a way it's a
lot
good
of,
response.
the role models
First of
in
all,
what I do today,
learning by
because,
doing, and
the
everybody has
circumstances back then
her
for me
or
were
his
different,
own
lived in another
experience,
country and came here,
and that helps you.
so
also
I learned
navigate
things
the
by doing.
circumstances,
So I would say
that you are in.
for a young person,
But
for
I
a
would
young
say
woman, what is important,
the most important
really
thing
to
is first
stick
and foremost
to
be
its
yourself.
path, to its experience,
And again,
to
be yourself
sort of
doesn't mean I do
learn
what I
things by
want.
doing. Number one,
It means
number
stick to
two
your
is
values,
to be yourself,
as we discussed
because,
before.
maybe adapt a little bit of
Everybody
your
can have
personality
diploma in
to
one
various
field or the other.
situations, just to
But
sort of
at the end of the day, we come
to-
from different cultures.
to do what you
We
want
speak
in the
different
best possible
languages.
way and to get
We
the best
can,
possible outcome. Do things differently.
but,
So we
be
should
yourself,
embrace
and also
this.
very often when we are young, we want to
because
imitate
the
other
difference can
people,
also
in
help
the sense
us
that we all want to be the same,
achieve
in that
something
sense.
else. It's
not
not
necessarily
because
taking the
we
best
all
of
have the
everybody,
same
what I
diploma,
said before,
but we are in competition, and that
then
I have
we are all
a
the
friend,
same,
and
and
how are
that's
we
not
going
what we need
to
in
compete
this
for one
society. We need
job?
different
It's not about
people.
that, because at the end of the day, we have the
So I
same
would say,
diploma, but one
be
person speaks
yourself,
one language, comes from one country.
Don't think
Another
that
one
you have
speaks
to be
another
like
language,
everybody
comes from
other.
another country,
Take from yourself
and it's really what
it's a bit
the
different.
company or
you
the
can study
employer
economy and
needs
law, and we
that
have
will
plenty of lawyers
necessarily
and
make the
economists.
difference between the two.
But,
So I would say
all those
really
people don't have the same background,
learn by doing,
not the same
stick
culture,
who
they
you
don't speak
are
the
first.
same language. So in a way, if you're motivated
and there's
don't
a place
be
for
ashamed
everybody.
of your
So
difference.
motivation
Rather,
plus
it's the advantage.
I would say a diploma, because at the end of the day, diploma for what I do at
also,
least
I
is
want first to
important.
say
For some
that,
other things is less important.
When I was a younger
but if you
woman,
had
I
to
didn't
do,
necessarily have the
to develop
advice
this kind
or
of a business
lot
consultancy in
role
Brussels, you need a
models in what
diploma.
I do
If you're
today, because
to have a chocolate shop, you don't necessarily need a diploma, but also you can go and have a diploma.
So I learned
chocolate,
things by
But
doing. So
be
I would say
yourself,
for a young person, for a young woman, what is important is really
because
to
everybody
stick
has
to
its competitive
path, to
advantage,
its
no matter
experience,
how
and to
same we are,
sort of
because we study
learn
the
things
same.
by doing. Number
That's
one.
maybe
Number
the
two
thing I
is
would advise
to be yourself.
young people
because,
overall. For a young girl,
everybody
I would also
can have
say
the
at the end of the day we are all
diploma in one
human
field or
beings,
the other.
know.
But at the end of the day,
I like
we
the
come
distinct,
from different cultures.
you know, men and
we speak different languages.
and women are
We
different
can
by nature.
do things differently. So
But
we should
I don't like
embrace
the thing that
these,
women should have more
differences, because
I don't
the
know,
difference can also help
better
us
opportunities because they're just women. No, they
achieve
are
something
good,
else.
and they're
It's not
that's why
because we all
they
have
have
the
good
same
opportunities.
diploma.
So I think
that
it
we
will
are in
help young women to say,
competition
no,
and that
I am
have
good,
a friend,
and therefore
how
I
are we
will
going
achieve something. Not
to
because
compete for one
somebody
job.
put a
It's
quota
not about that,
somewhere.
because at the end of the day,
These
we
days
have the
probably
same
important
diploma,
to have
but one person
quotas.
speaks one language, comes
Because
from one
otherwise
country,
you don't get
another
really
one
somewhere.
speaks
But
another language, comes
when
from
you are
another
young,
country.
don't think
and it's
about
really
quotas.
what the
Think what
the
you can achieve
company
yourself.
or
The
the
quota can help you
employer
later.
needs that will. I think it's probably much more difficult when you are a younger person to start your own business, because experience does help. However, I think that we live today in a world that is very flexible, fluid, that having a job for 20 years that was a rule maybe some years ago is not anymore valid. Therefore, I think being prepared for the world of today already, not the world of tomorrow, is also being flexible and not believing that you will get one job and you will stay there. So I think if the girls want to start the business early on, is rather maybe an advantage today, because they will straight away be ready for all these changes that are coming more rapidly than ever. So I would say the most probably piece of advice is, of course, you have to believe in what you know. So don't be shy on things that you know, and we all know something. We have to certainly find out what it is. Maybe at an early stage in your life it's not necessarily easy, but that's why I would say listen to what other people say to you about you and trust that it's true what they're telling you. You are good in this, you are good in that. Maybe take time to think about it, and then what I would like to do with that doesn't need to be a business. Can be first of all a hobby, and the hobby can become a business, because usually we like hobbies and we do them well and we devote time to that. So piece of advice is really maybe listen to what other people think about you, what your skills are, where you're good at. Also think about what you like, and very often these two things connect. And then just go for it and just get yourself informed. What are the rules? Because it's very important to know what are the rules in ABC country about setting up your own business. There are countries where it's easier to set up the business and others where this is not. Get a good advice on what is setting up a business. That's really important.
Okay, thank you. This is it.
Thank you.